Hi, good morning. We're going to present what law schools are teaching in regards to the law and technology module or law and technology type of teaching within the curriculum. So just to a little bit of a plug on our production of publications. We have one output on elective modules, to which we have selected the law and technology bits of it to give you map out what law schools are indeed teaching in the elective front of things. And our forthcoming paper will be on the core curriculum, to which we have discovered some law schools have embedded law and technology modules into their curriculum. We're only looking at undergraduates, and we are excluding undergraduates with specialized pathways, just to give you a scope of the law curriculum in England within, non-specialized pathways.
So the undergraduate curriculum at UK law schools is comparatively uniform. So if you look at the subjects that law schools are teaching, there's a lot of consistency. Often the titles are a little bit different, but a lot of the substance is similar, and that's broadly to be expected. Until comparatively recently, law schools were required to teach the FLK subjects as part of their curriculum. In the elective space, things are a bit more varied, but again, in the research that we did, we found that there is quite a bit of consistency there. There is also some historic comparisons that we can make. So if we look back to 2004, 2005, Harrison Breinart's work on the law school curriculum demonstrated a similar sort of diversity but consistency amongst institutions. They mentioned computer and internet law, which feels almost like antiquated in today's terminology. But in 2004, roughly a third of law schools were offering some sort of module that Harrison Breinart labeled computer and internet law. All of the computer and internet law modules were in the elective curriculum. And certainly in the research that we've done, we've found that although there has been a significant change, the majority of law and technology is still primarily within that elective curriculum space, where it's a module in its own right. We'll get on to the broader impact of law and technology later on in the presentation. In the research that you mentioned that was published earlier this year in the law teachers based on data from academic year 2023-24, we found that approximately 78 institutions, I wanted to get the numbers right there for a moment, approximately 78 institutions were offering law and technology focused elective modules.
So what we look at in terms of the publication that we have, we also do not look at the credit bearings or the credit weighting of these curriculum with law and technology. So in that sense, we would, in a way, look at the credit bearing stuff in our forthcoming publications. So on to the elective curriculum.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, when we did that data in 2023-24, we weren't looking at credit ratings, we were just looking at number of modules. That's something that we sort of wanted to rectify with the more recent work we've been doing on the core curriculum. And being asked to present this paper, we then also did a dive into elective modules in the 2024-25 curriculum, so the academic year that's just coming to a conclusion. And we found that, no surprise, law and technology continues to hold quite a dominant role in the elective curriculum space. Looking at course specifications and information on institutional web pages across 103 institutions, we identified 99 law and technology modules in the elective curriculum. So we've already seen a bit of an increase in just one academic year. The law and technology curriculum continues to itself be diverse. And in the paper that we wrote in 2024, we found that actually the law and technology has moved well beyond just the computer and internet law that Harris and Bryan have discussed, including modules on emerging technologies, AI in the law, cyber law, and data protection. So a mix of modules that are, in a way, entirely their own. They're about the emerging use of technology in a legal space, but also modules that combined technology and the study of law and existing legal disciplines, things like data protection, media law, and so on.
One particular example that we would like to pick out from our sample is the one that's a law and technology, law, science and technology module offered by Swansea University. So in a sense, it shows the interaction between society and their use and perhaps abuses of technology through smart devices and also through computers. So here are a selection of what they touch upon: public reason and truth, something that brought out perhaps a reaction from Cambridge Analytica, in terms of how information, mass information that's out there could information that's out there could skew some sort of truth, alternate truth, fake news, and so on and so forth. And from there, skew public opinion, technology, power, and democracy as well. The digitally privileged individuals, and also the digitally individuals that's been excluded. Science experts and the courts. We've heard about the one that Andy and Bruce Shea talked about, hallucinations in terms of AI-generated information being passed as precedents and court precedences, that case precedences in courts. These are things that the public and also legal scholars ought to be versed, and also judgment to use and abuses of these type of technology. And also something that's pretty much within sensitivities, race and technology as well, in the curriculum of decolonization, and also in critical race type of conversation with the use of technology.
As might be expected, the majority of the law and technology modules that we observed in the elective curriculum acted like elective modules. So they were often 15 or 20 credits, depending on how the institutions structured their degrees. Almost all of them were in the later years of a degree. So 79 of the 99 modules that we looked at were in year 3 of a student's program. Again, that's partially to do with where institutions put their elective modules, but I think it's also interesting in the context of even amongst institutions where they did have elective modules at an earlier stage of student studies, law and technology seemed to be being framed as a more advanced subject. It was something where a student was already quite experienced within their degree. Although there has been that increase in the number of modules, it's worth noting that between 2023-24 and 24-25, whilst there were some new modules being added, there were also some movements in the direction. Institutions removing law and technology modules from their curriculum. Now, sometimes that seems to be part of broader changes. It's not that they've scrapped the law and technology module, it's that they've revalidated or they've restructured their degrees or they have moved things around a bit. But it is worth observing that standalone modules, there is some movement in the other direction. The other thing that we'd note at this stage is the thematic analysis that we did in the 23-24 paper, where we looked at the law and technology elective modules, and we, based on their module titles and information that was publicly available, thematically broken them down to these different categories. We're not suggesting that these are mutually exclusive categories, but they reflect the scope of law and technology within the elective curriculum. And those are some of the new modules that have been added.
So you could see that there's like a healthy appetite for these modules, and it is growing and it is evolving in regards to how we use, how technology, how the society interacts with technology, and most importantly, how in terms of policy, governmental types of regulation, how we regulate these types of technology whilst not stifling innovation.
So that's sort of a follow-on from some of the data that we collected in 2023-24. What we've been doing more recently is looking at the core curriculum, and not just for law and technology, we've done this across the board, but in the underpinning research that we've done for this paper, we've been looking at institutions' course specifications and, again, information that's available on institutional web pages about the core curriculum. And we've been looking at credit weighting and place within the degree, as well as just module titles. As you mentioned, this doesn't include joint honours courses, so we are just looking at LLB law, or whatever you choose to label your sort of quote-unquote main law degree. There are a couple of institutions which are excluded, so a few institutions that don't award credits, or that have quite unusual structures where this sort of analysis doesn't quite work. More than happy to discuss that on a one-to-one basis if you've got questions towards the end. And we don't have a point of comparison for this, so we didn't do this in 2023-24. We can look back to Harris and Reinhardt, the last overall survey of legal education, where there wasn't anything in the core curriculum space, and now there does seem to be.
So you could see there are some institutions that embed core in their core curriculum, some selected law and technology modules. Okay, as in it has Future of Law, Introduction to Technology and Regulation, the Cumbria, Lawyering and Dispute Resolution in the Digital Age, UCLAN in terms of like law and emerging technology, Arden with technology innovation, and the law mentions the MAT in regards to digital skills for lawyers, and South Wales in law, technology, and in practice. So, yeah, like I said, in terms of credit bearingness, it is indeed the core modules indeed could vary from 5, 15, or 20 credit type of settings. And like Cameron said, it is now embedded more in first and second year, so you get digital technology literacy skills as when you embark in your legal studies.
Yeah, so this doesn't include what we would frame as academic skills development modules, things that aren't legally specific. So, for instance, you've got Nottingham Trent who have a module on studying for success in the digital age, which their law students are taking and is part of their core curriculum. But we wouldn't label that as a law and technology module. That seems to have a broader scope. So there are these 6 institutions that do have specialist law and technology provision within dedicated modules. We would suggest that the thematic analysis we did on elective modules has some relevancy to these as well. They do seem to promote similar trends, but institutions are choosing to embed them within their core curriculum, usually placing them in the earlier years of the degree. So the majority of these are in year 1 of the degree. Sorry, no. Half of these are in year 1 of the degree, half of them are in year 2 of the degree, and they're being given credit weighting that is comparable to other core modules within their programs. The small number of them suggests that this is something that institutions are still exploring and still developing. But what we did note was institutions placing emphasis on law and technology more broadly across their curriculum program. And so this included this included institutions mentioning technology in the context of other modules, so modules that weren't explicitly about law and technology, but where technology and technology-assisted learning were mentioned in reference in either the overall course documentation or individual module documentation. We'd suggest that there are sort of 4 themes that emerge from this.
So in terms of like curriculum design, you have these type of skills, technological skills within embedded within we call subject specialist type of context. So one is sub-modular, so giving you some sort of example, and in a module such as contract law, there is some sort of emerging discussion about enforcing of modules within digital, like smart contracts, or even like non-verbal emojis, whether that is enough to signal a formation of a contract, and so on and so forth. So in terms of like much more contemporary, technologically savvy types of structuring around the negotiation stage, and also around the construction stage of a contract. Another example is in media law, in a sense of, what is the role of a citizen journalist using the media, and from there on publishing information, and in the sense of, the codes of the various codes of conduct and the various types of repercussion in a fast-moving, fast-paced, unchecked type of information platforms. And in the other example, as another example for these types of sub-modular discussions of technology, is law in practice, in a sense of, using AI assistant tools within the law firms. How are they going to feature? How are they going to facilitate senior lawyers, partners, and what would be the role of the junior lawyer in this type of situation? How would it affect the organization of the firm? These types of things would situate legal scholars and legal students, law students, in terms of like, how would they present themselves in the world of digital and AI work.
So as well as law and technology being mentioned within module specifications, so some of the examples that UA gave there, it was also often mentioned in more strategic course level documentation. For example, at Bath Spa University, by training you in a range, evaluation, selection and use of an array of specialist legal and general non-legal digital tools, platforms and databases, applied assessments will teach you to use these tools in a meaningful real-world way. Or at Middlesex University, under a heading of technological agility, in an era of rapid technological advancement and an increasing influence of AI, we prioritise digital literacy. Our curriculum integrates cutting-edge technologies, examples of which include state-of-the-art research databases. Through hands-on experience, students are prepared to adapt to emerging technologies and thrive in digitally driven industries. And so we suggest that institutions are making strategic decisions about where to incorporate technology within their modules and their program, with a student focus. And we see some acknowledgement, it's quite limited, but some acknowledgement that our students are the digital natives in this context, that they are often coming with more familiarity than some of the academics who are teaching them with relationship to these tools. And that the and that the use of technology within programs is sometimes being seen as a selling point. Institutions are making choices to put an emphasis within their websites, within their course specifications, on the ways in which students will use. Institutions often connected the use of technology within their studies nationalisation and so on. And for several institutions, it was seen as a unique selling point in the way that they developed their courses. So just in brief summary here, you.
So that's yep. So that's basically what the integratedness of technology and also connected with law. It really aligned with the strategies of globalization, internationalization, and also sharing within different contextual legal studies, making a globalized world, although there's homogeneity within the technology, but there's also some sort of diversity on regulation and all other granular aspects of it, such as privacy and cultural differences.
Thank you very much.
That's all we have.